with Christian from MOLAS and Stephen from No Energy. We today is the second session of a workshop series we have put together to help energy managers at municipality to manage their energy. It's part of a bigger capability building initiative we are conducting with the IESO. So just you may have noticed, but we are recording this session, and we will share with you the recording after the session. So now I'll let Stephen and Christian introduce themselves.
All right, I'll let Christian go ahead. Christian.
Hi, everyone. Good morning to you all, and thanks for tuning in and joining us. I always say on a morning like this, Friday, of course, you could have been anywhere, but you chose to be here, and we want to acknowledge that. My name is Christian. I work with LAS as a municipal program specialist. And at LAS, what we basically do is we develop programs and services for municipalities to participate in. And when they do, they reduce cost, because they save time and they save cost as well. One of such, programs is our energy.
Sorry, no, I just have something starting at 10 here. They're just getting going though.
But yeah, if you want to jump.
Thanks, Honora.
Yeah, I've got all the mics. You can go ahead, Christian. And just unmute yourself.
You muted everybody, yeah.
Sorry, you muted. Sorry for that. One of such workshops is our, programs at LAS is our energy training workshop and treasure hunt. We'll talk more about it during this training. But proud to LAS, I worked with the municipality outside of London as an energy manager and sustainability coordinator. But the last 7 years or so, I've been with LAS, and yeah, it's been great fun being with LAS and helping municipalities, especially in the area of energy savings. So I'll hand over to Stephen, and there's more to talk about, so I wouldn't waste much time. Stephen, over to you.
Great, thank you very much, Christian, and thanks, Honora, for that. If you make Christian a presenter, then in the event you have to unmute all again, that will make sure he stays unmuted. So, good morning, everybody. It's going to be a busy workshop today. There's no doubt about it. We've got a number of things planned. We're going to try to keep this one really interactive too. Our agenda is really to lay out in front of you sort of key aspects or key components of energy management best practice, everything from technical to organizational to behavioral aspects, and then to show you how many of the programs that are available now and in development from Save on Energy can support you in this energy management journey. From my point of view, I've been an energy management person on a journey for about, well, my wife reminded me the other day, 43 years in doing this. So hopefully I've learned something along the way, but I learn something every day, and I look forward to learning something from your questions today. So we definitely will want to get some questions out of you or get some interaction going at the end. We are going to have you sort of tell us where you're at in your journey through a Mentimeter poll. The aspects of energy management that we're going to look at are sixfold plus one continuous improvement aspect. So this says, where do you start? You look at this and go, where do I start? Like, do I start at planning? Do I start at operational integration? Maybe I should start at employee engagement. I don't know. It doesn't really matter where you start with these aspects. So we've designed this. We're going to walk through them sequentially because you can't do them randomly, really. But you can start anywhere. And we're going to give you an idea in each one of these areas, right, from employee engagement, management commitment, planning, opportunity identification, implementation, monitoring and reporting, operational integration, and that continuous improvement piece. We're going to give you some tips in each of those areas. We're going to do a little poll, right, using Mentimeter to see where you're at in your progress on this journey in these different aspects. And we'll give you a couple of examples, maybe one or two examples in each one. We've got a couple of videos from Save on Energy, which are somewhat inspiring, that we'll share with you as well. All of this will be available to you afterwards. Now, you might say, well, as we go through this, and if I don't participate in these Mentimeter polls, well, maybe I won't be able to get benefit here. Well, yes, you will, because after the session, you're going to receive a spreadsheet tool, which will allow you to evaluate yourself on the same scales as we do in the workshop. So there's sort of the do-it-yourself version, and I'll actually even share with you another version throughout the session too that we often use for building consensus in organizations. So you'll be able to track your improvement, track your best practices moving forward. Let's get started. We're going to start with management commitment. Management commitment is probably the number one reason many energy management efforts succeed, right? So that's why we're starting here. And if you start the other ones, you may want to jump to this one sooner than later, because you do need that management commitment overall. Management commitment can take different forms. One of the key things, it gives your program a voice, right? It makes sure that, you know, people are aware of it, and it gets amplified. It's that megaphone. You want to pick your executive sponsor or someone in the organization, somewhat probably high up, who has both the connections but also the personality, maybe if we can put it that way, the demeanor, to really be that sponsor. And this person is a leader. This person is someone that inspires other people to do things. They won't be doing the things themselves necessarily, but they will be the inspiration other people will see. There will be a team required. I'm going to neat little video that talks about these three things all integrated together. There will be a team required, because energy isn't not just one person's job. One thing I've learned over the years, sometimes if you give the job to an energy manager, everybody else throws the hot potato to that energy manager. But what I've learned is that it's everybody's job. Everybody has something to contribute. You know, any energy project you involve a number of people, so we need to have everybody on board, right? We don't necessarily have them on board every day, but we need to see, or they need to see, that they are a part of this, right? And they can volunteer, and they can be maybe appointed in some cases, but let's be careful with that one. But ultimately, everyone has something to contribute. And we need a guiding light, right? Beyond the commitment, the guiding light typically becomes the policy, right? It can be a simple policy. It can be a fairly complex one. There's lots of different models for policy. But at the end of the day, it's the thing that provides the framework, sets the goals, right? And one thing I'm going to suggest is, when you start setting goals and targets, things like that, little victories help to build momentum, rather than sort of setting this huge goal out there. And many people have this goal of, you know, carbon zero by 2050. But what are the little steps that we need to get there? Because that's the things that are going to make us successful. Those little victories will help us to build momentum. What I'm going to do right now is show you a little video here from the city of Mississauga. And this brings together the mayor with management or executive commitment, cross-departmental team, the energy manager, but also other aspects in municipality. I think it kind of gives us an idea of how we need to bring all of this stuff together. So let's take a look at, well, Daniela, who's a great energy manager, but what the city of Mississauga has done around what she's doing.
Mississauga is a vibrant, diverse, growing city. As one of Canada's largest cities, it's important that sustainability is at the core of everything we do. We want to be an example of successful preparation, because we know that it will pay dividends down the road.
Mississauga's ambition is to become a carbon neutral community in the future. Although our energy conservation plan targets 1% energy consumption reduction per year, we almost exceeded that target every year. And we continue to look and explore proven and emerging technology.
Climate change is important to all of us. And to think then that we have one of the leaders in the province on board as part of our team, I mean, that's just fantastic. There's no silver bullet in terms of addressing climate change or energy conservation. It's going to take us all pulling together.
Trust is very, very important, because if the leadership, stakeholders, all people engaged in facilities management trust us, we know that energy efficiency is successful. Since 2010, we submitted 239 Save on Energy applications, and we received more than $1.5 million for 12,447 megawatt hours saved. City of Mississauga is the first Canadian municipality to achieve ISO 50001 certification in one of our community centers, and we are very proud of this achievement.
We know that climate change is a threat, that we have to act to address it, which is why we've set a goal to reduce our emissions by 80% by 2050, and our aspirational goal, of course, is net zero by 2050.
Our role is to make sure that our level of energy efficiency in corporate buildings are as high as we can achieve. And we want to be a model for the industry. We want the community to follow us and make it happen.
Interesting. Lots of good stuff in there. That, you know, yeah. I'm going to encourage you to go back and read that one again, but there's a lot of good stuff packed in there. So right now, you're going to get a chance to say, where are you at? Kristen, do you have a comment
Actually,
about
yeah,
that one?
I can relate, because I used to work for a municipality where I saw management commitment as a true component of strategic energy management, and we're going to talk about that project, later on in this workshop.
Johnny,
But when
kom og
you
se
have
meg
this,
hundet, så.
you strange. Anytime I start talking, someone's mic is unmuted. Anyway, sorry about that. When you have the CAO, when you have the mayor, when you have the staff, the municipal staff, including council on board, there's so much you can do, and you will see to some of those projects as we go through this webinar. So just a key component I want to reiterate. That's all.
Okay, so here's the speed test. So Honora is going to put up a poll here in Menti. You're going to have to accept the cookies. I think it'll come up the first time. And then you can fill in the poll here. And we'll get to see the results dynamically coming up on the screen. So go ahead. What we're going to ask you to do is to look at the 5 statements and then sort of rate where your organization, your department, you are at with respect to these 5 different statements about management commitment. And I think you have a minute to do this, right, Honora?
Yes, correct.
So we're starting to see the poll results come in. Looks like the West Ward is polling pretty good now. It's like an election night, right? I'm going to have to come up with a different joke for the next one for that. But, all right. The neat thing about this poll, if you've never used these Mentimeter polls before, is that you get to see sort of what the aggregate score is anonymously, but you also get to see what the distribution of scores are, which is pretty cool in some ways. And what I always look for is like, is it blurred out? Is there a multimodal, like is there 2 modes, like a high and a low group? Or is there a very concise group, right? Because in that case, they're very confined. It's, there's a consensus. Now, we're going across organizations here, but some of these questions become really useful when you're actually doing it within your own organization. So using a Menti poll to do this, you could do that using the spreadsheet we'll send you. Are we done there? Pretty much, Nora?
So now it's locked.
Okay. So yeah, so I'm looking at the scores here. So we're seeing like we got somebody in the middle on, and then on the higher end, and yeah, like it looks like there's some multimodal things. Looks like things are a little lower on the bottom end there. So, but yeah, kind of interesting. I'm not going to overanalyze this because with so many people in the room, that's not valuable. I think what's valuable here is you quickly can see the different components, and you'll realize yourself as you score yourself, hey, how am I doing? So we're going to give you, again, the scoring system afterwards, so you can go back and work through this progressively. And it's interesting, in that video, you talked about the, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. In that video, they talked about ISO 50001. If you haven't heard about that, that is, this is all I'm going to say about it here, but that is the ultimate systematic way to manage energy in an organization. Just like ISO 14, 9000, those are environment and quality management standards. 50001 is an energy management standard. I know, Andrew, online, you've been doing a lot of work with that. Also, we're going to credit your team, Andrew, over at Goldfin with developing this 7 aspect wheel that we're working with here today. So this stuff is founded in very strategic energy management, and I'm using that word very strategically, but it also can be used ad hocly. Ideally, your journey will take you from the ad hoc to the systematic, and that's where things are going to be really successful and persistent. Okay, so I'm going to move forward here into the next aspect, planning. Right, so planning is where we look ahead. Many organizations are good at planning, right? So how can we take those planning skills and bring them together to develop that roadmap for energy, which will lead to those goals, sometimes aspirational, as we heard from the mayor. Understanding what your significant energy users are. Figure out where it's all going, right? And in systematic energy management and strategic energy management, we'll focus on those things, right? So figure out where the big users are and really starting to focus on those things, right? Moving forward, then as we start to realize what we can do, as we realize where the opportunities are, being able to put those things in a register, meaning literally a list, right? So that they don't get lost. I had this conversation yesterday. I was working with a company and they had lots of things that they come up with to do, but nobody had compiled them into a list and was tracking whether that list was being worked on. Right? This is where the rubber really hits the road in getting things done. We can collect up all those great suggestions. Employee suggestions are good, and I'm going to say later on, make sure that every suggestion an employee comes up with has a disposition. The energy management assessment, again, we're kind of doing that on the fly as we go through this in terms of these organizational best practices, but I'll give you another example of an energy management assessment in a few minutes. right here. So this is one that we've used a lot, where we look at the 10 key proficiencies of organizations: commitment planning, organization monitoring, targeting and reporting, developing projects, financing or investing in those projects, communication and training. This covers a broad swath of things, but it looks at what the organization is capable of doing, right? And I use that word capability because energy management capability is something that the ISO right now is really, really focusing on. And all the tools that you're going to see later on are really focused on building capabilities across the province of Ontario. But the organizational capabilities are just as important as the technical ones, as we see here, these 10 different aspects. So I actually, when I go to a meeting with an organization, what I'll do is I'll sit down with, say, 13 people in the room. I'll give them a little piece of paper. I'll say, look at that matrix. Look at the matrix over here. Read the descriptions. Figure out what your score is. Is it a 0? Is it a 4? Is it a 2.5? What is it? Give me back those scores anonymously. I'll put them in my spreadsheet. We'll take a look at how we score. We'll look at the diversity in the scores. We'll look at the consensus we have. And we can use this to build consensus about where we are today. But we can also say, where do we want to be? So we can then bring ourselves to consensus about where our goals are in these 10 key aspects. And that will actually help us to develop objectives for improving our organizational capability in these 10 key aspects. So that's one way to do an energy management assessment. The opportunity register, LAS has a great tool. Christian, you want to talk about the EPT?
Exactly. Yeah, the EPT is the greatest tool I ever found, so to speak. And you may say I'm being biased, but that is so true because it's simple, it's user friendly, and it gives you that platform, to input your opportunities. We're going to talk more about it, later on as to some of the cool things that it can do. Recently, just like 2 weeks ago, we had a city. I won't say city. We had a municipality in the GTA, signed up on the EPT, and to us that was a vote of confidence to have such a huge municipality say, hey, we want to use this to track energy consumption. Annual subscription super low. I mean, there is no way you wouldn't even want to get it. So let me just end there, but I'll talk more about the EPT. And yeah, what else do I have to say? We have over 100 municipalities that have signed on and they are using it. And like I said, recently, one of the big municipalities in the GTA also has signed up on it. So if you're a municipality here, this morning, shoot me an email, call me, see how we can make this, accessible to you. It's super low subscription fee.
And you'll get access to that opportunity register, which we're looking at here,
precisely,
right? In which you can then track the status of those projects.
Exactly.
Make sure things get done.
Exactly, and not lost.
Yeah. So what's the status? What's the status of your planning, right? So let's have a look at that one. So Honora, to the next poll, please.
Yeah, so let me switch to a second slide. Here you go. I'll start the 1-minute timer.
And Honora, after we finish this, you'll be able to send out a summary of these results, won't you? I'm pretty sure, right?
Yeah.
So with a link to the video and the slides. Absolutely.
Correct.
And just want to find out, is everyone, I'm seeing some people saying they are not seeing the screen. Is everybody okay with seeing what we're doing in terms of the screen?
Nora's been making suggestions around that. Robert couldn't see the poll.
Can't see the poll. Someone just said can't see the poll.
That's an interesting one because even on that first aspect, we've conducted a review of our equipment to identify the significant users. A lot of people are low, but that's actually the highest, almost the highest score in this whole thing, right? Whereas on the bottom, we've conducted formal energy assessments to define the intervals based on a defined interval. So going back to this equipment and looking at it on a regular basis, right? So always important. We actually run in a water pumping utility recently. We've run a series of workshops and assessments, which actually look at the major energy users, which are things like pumps. So it's an interesting thing. So we'll leave that one with you. I don't see anything really alarming there. I think there's work to do, but we will move forward. All right, so I'm going to go back and get back to my slides. There we go. Hopefully everybody we can resolve some of the problems around people being able to see these things. All right, let's move forward. Opportunity identification implementation. Always a fun one of mine. I started off, they throw me out and they said, go and do energy audits, Steve, 43 years ago. And that's what I started off doing, is identifying opportunities. But what was interesting is that I realized that a lot of them weren't being implemented, and that's important, right? Just identifying them is not enough. You have to actually implement, act upon these things, right? So having a pipeline of things that's continuing, and that's what that opportunity register will help too, right? Because it kind of feeds and tracks that pipeline. Energy hunts are great things. We call them energy treasure hunts. Other people call them energy hunts, but they're a great way to, well, identify opportunities. And Energy Star have on the next slide, I'll show you how to do them, or at least what we do. But ultimately, it's a great way to engage staff too. So we talk about engagement later, but not only do you identify opportunities, I actually had a senior director and an operational a building operator in a building in an elevator once when we were doing one of these, and they looked at each other and said, we got to do more of these, because I didn't realize what you were looking at. I didn't realize what you needed. We started to have this conversation between people across the organization. Things started to happen as a result of that. The energy hunt isn't just about the technical things. It's also about building that engagement. Energy data. I'm a huge fan of energy data, as many of you probably know. You can glean so much information from good energy data. And we've got a series of workshops that we're running through the Save on Energy through Capability Initiative, where we actually take you through 3 webinars to actually get down and actually look at that hourly or that 50-minute interval data. Almost everybody that's gone through those sessions has found at least one opportunity. And that's my experience. If you've never seen an interval profile before, you'll probably find an opportunity when you look at it. And behavioral and operational improvements. It's not all about the capital. And if we're going to build towards those lofty goals that are going to require investment and change in technologies, we have to start out, right, with a solid foundation of house in order. To me, those are the behavioral and the operational things where everybody is working together, finding those opportunities, operating things in an efficient state. Then we can build upon those things. The LAS Energy Treasure Hunt, and I'm going to get Kristen to speak to where we've done this on the next slide, but basically it's either a 1 or a 2 day type of treasure hunt. Typically we'll do them in 1 day where people are busy, and we'll do a half day of a workshop where we teach people how to look at energy, and the second half is where we go and look at the building, do a walk through the building, look at the building automation systems, gather ideas, and us as facilitators then have to put numbers on those ideas. By the end of the day, we have a flip chart full of ideas with numbers beside them. This is what you can save. Dollars, greenhouse gas emissions. And again, it's a great way to build engagement. Christian, we've had some great results. This is one we did a little while ago where 2 building operators, we gave them their profiles and we asked them to figure out which building was which. But then they started conversing and realized that these buildings were almost identical. The purple and the blue building, these are hourly profiles. One was using a lot more energy than the other one. And they, between them, figured out there was overrides in their automation systems, those little orange cells in that screenshot down below means somebody's overridden that settings. $20,000 worth of opportunity for a 15-minute conversation around interval data between 2 operators. I could have never found that. Those people found that. We triggered it, but they found it. And we found a lot more than that. Correct, Christian?
Exactly. I mean, this is a case study of some of the municipalities that we've engaged with. This is pre-COVID, post-COVID. We've engaged with Thunder Bay, found tons of savings, hundreds of thousands of savings, and we've engaged with the town of Hanover also. I see one of the representatives is online from Hanover, and there also we found tens of thousands of savings. But in City of Guelph, same thing, Houghton Hills, Milton. These are savings from anything from lighting upgrades to investigating your base load, where higher base load, shutting off unnecessary equipment, to optimizing on your set points, temperature set points for your RTUs, and of course, air handling units, set points for ventilation. So it's brilliant. At the end of the day, the staff is empowered, to go out there and identify these savings. This week, I had an email from a municipality, wastewater treatment plant, too much energy saving, what can we do? He was reaching out to me as a municipal energy specialist. That's one hat I wear. So I said, well, after recommending so many other things, and I find the final recommendation is let's do a treasure hunt, because you never know. You may think of the big things, let's change the RT, let's change electric heating to natural gas, and on and on and on. But there could be the smaller things that is also costing you energy. And I recommended the treasure hunt. I'm yet to hear from the municipality. So the point is, there is value in training, and you identify savings that you can't believe it, from what we have seen.
So, Honora, next poll, please. And just the value in training, I think that's one thing that the Save on Energy program really is focusing on strongly, is training, right? And making as many resources, as I'll identify some of them, just a fraction of them actually at the end of the workshop, available to you relatively easily. I like the trend that's developing in this one. There's like the highest scores we've reviewed our building energy to identify opportunities, and there's a good chunk at the higher scores here. Now we're starting to flatten out on that one, so it's interesting. Just like elections, we shouldn't judge the results until they're done, right? Well, we're getting a bit more of those higher scores that are coming in on the first one, right? A little low on the involving staff, right? Or prioritizing quick wins and the behavioral, but like I'm a great believer in what staff can do. I once went to a municipality and I looked at 8 different rinks, and the one rink that the operator didn't have a building automation system to use because he'd been locked out of it for like literally months, was the best energy performing rink in the municipality. It was because of the operator using it properly. So to me, the engagement of staff and all this and the treasure hunts are a good way to do that. Really, I think pay dividends many times over. Okay, thank you, Honora. That's the results there. And again, I'm going to just reiterate that we will be sharing these results with you afterwards, and then you will have the spreadsheet to do your own self-assessment as well. All right, let's move onwards. We have many miles to go. Monitoring and reporting, another favorite one of mine, right? I mean, I think somebody famous in history once said, what gets measured gets done, or you can't improve what you don't measure or you don't understand. One way or the other, you need numbers to really make this stuff work, right? And to make sure you're actually making progress. So monitoring and reporting is key, right? Interval data is a great starting point, as I said earlier, as I showed in the graph a few minutes ago. And there are sessions that support this through the capability building initiative. Green Button is getting better and better all the time, making it easier for you to get that data. Use it. I looked at my first profile like this in 1983, and I stared at a piece of paper on a page for I was sitting there in my office. Somebody said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm becoming one with this building." But no joke, I was able to, by looking at the patterns and starting to ask questions, understand and find opportunities. And that was many years ago, 40 years ago. But it took me a couple of years before I figured out, after I started, these interval data analysis were really important. Having the reporting plan, giving the right information to the right people, not just having one person see these numbers. There's no way that doesn't share it with anybody. But remember to report in a way that actually means something to the person you're reporting to, right? So depending on the type of organizational culture that you operate within, some people might not want to see some of this information. They want to see stuff that's relevant to them, but make sure you respect the culture of your organization when you design your reporting plan to make sure that people have the right information, it speaks to them, and it speaks to the progress. Baseline models. Doing simple year-over-year comparisons doesn't work, right? Using things like Energy Star Portfolio Manager or Red Screen, again, lots of training available from Save on Energy around those things, allow you to make objective comparisons, factoring in occupancy, production, whatever the driving variables are. Year-over-year comparisons can get confounded by that. Good baseline modeling with these tools doesn't, and it gives you an objective result which you can report. LAS has some reporting tools around this, right? Not only the planning tool, but also the reporting side of it too, correct?
Exactly. And with this same tool, which I spoke to earlier on, we've got a portion that helps you to create your 5-year CDM planning. It's coming up next year. We have to be doing that planning. We have a portion which allows you to monitor all your energy projects. And I must say, when I used to work for a municipality as an energy manager, this tool was really, really handy. It helped me to develop all the projects that I needed to do and to document them and to run with them. Super helpful. And of course, there is a link for an instructional video if you want to if you use it and you want to upload it from EPT to Energy Star Portfolio. There's an instructional video that will show you how to do it. But it's a cool tool. That's all that I can say. Really, really cool tool. And I know the 100 and so municipalities that are using it can attest to that as well.
This is a view of the stuff we do in that interval data workshop that we work through Save on Energy to do, accessing and analyzing your interval data. We walked you through getting that data, all those numbers. We walked you through doing those nice time series and these heat maps. The heat map's a great thing because you can look at that. The brightest red spot on that is the highest demand for energy. That's a whole year there. Every row is 1 week. Every pixel in the row is actually a 1 hour period, and then weeks down. So you can see the whole year, but then we can zoom in and look at it on a weekly basis, and we can see how that building starts and stops. When we look at these profiles, we find things like control issues, because this is very granular information. Granted, you can't do it on all your buildings, but if you can benchmark your buildings, find the ones, say, with the Energy Star that are performing not as well performing, then you can zoom in with this type of tool and really get an idea of what's going on. And I can say, every time you look at this profile for the first time, you'll find an opportunity. And you can use that to make sure that whatever you've done stays in place afterwards. So that's an important part of monitoring as well. So what's the status of your monitoring, Honora? Let's have a look.
Here you go. I'm starting the 1 minute timer.
I'd be interested to see the score on the first one for sure, because getting the data is probably the most difficult part, but it's the most important part too, because you can't do anything without the data. Ooh, that's good. Coming out in front, it's like a horse race. Oh. Hey, I like that that 2.5 we've established a baseline of energy use to normalize consumption against key drivers. Very, very important, right? Red Screen, Portfolio Manager, both do a good job. You can do a wonderful job in a spreadsheet too. I mean, we use those other tools, but I've used spreadsheets for years. So that's a key piece. I mean, to me, that's a great score, having that's the highest score here, because that's the one that's going to give us the most objective view of where we're going and our momentum as momentum builds. We could do some work on the interval data, but I think that's part of that is the difficulty in getting it, but I'm going to encourage everybody to do that. I use a thing called load factor. I take the consumption of the building and I divide it by the demand of the building electrically times 24 hours. And that tells me what percentage of my peak demand I'm actually utilizing. It speaks to the profile. And if I find that my load factor is varying a lot or is not what I expect it to be for a building, then I'm going to dive in and get a demand profile. I think the email address at the end is up there. If anybody wants to know how to do load factor, I can send a little paper on load factor and how to figure out whether it tells you something about your demand profile or your interval profile that maybe you need to dig down and have a look at. Okay, great. Polls are in, but good job, everybody, in terms of that third one, right? Making sure you have that objective baseline. Wonderful. All right, so let's jump back in here and take a look at our next step. So, whoops. What happened there? Okay, great. I'm just gonna. All right, so operational integration. That's where we sort of really fit this together. Over the years, what I've always observed is this: a lot of times the energy management sort of has been something that's over here. It gets siloed, it gets separated, and eventually gets forgotten about. But I really, truly believe, and if you look at the management system approach, ISO, then you really have to integrate it in, right? So well, I talked earlier about it being a part of everybody's job, but ultimately then we need to make it a small part of everybody's job. Now, I know we haven't got school boards. I think we have one school board person on the line, but I once saw a job description for a custodian in the school, which included energy management, right? Meaning their job was to make sure the school wasn't wasting energy. And I've actually had custodians say to me, hey, energy management, that's energy waste. That's our responsibility. We're the last out and the first in. If there's waste, we're responsible. I mean, to me, that's the essence of operational integration, where everybody from the custodian to the principal in the school or any other facility is really understands their role and what they can contribute, right? Guidelines and procedures. I mean, it's interesting. I once was in a facility where the person who was cleaning the facility identified that there was a lot of things being left on at night, but she did not have permission to turn them off. She said, if you can give me permission, give me a list, give me a procedure about shutting down things to make sure that we're not wasting, that would be great. We identified $48,000 a year in opportunity just by identifying and looking at the things she talked about. We gave her permission, we gave her the procedure, gave her the guideline. Energy waste was reduced. Roles and responsibilities, like I said, making sure that everyone understands what their role is with respect to energy, the custodian in any building, right? Having a role, a very important role to play in reducing waste, making sure people understand their role. And the other thing, too, is making sure that we make decisions around energy. Many organizations make decisions around first cost, right? What's the cheapest thing? That's the one I'm going to buy. But sometimes the first cost cheapness will get you long-term expensiveness, if I can use very, very fancy words, right? No, ideally, you want to pick the lowest life cycle cost over the life cycle of it. And that's something that we've done a lot of. Christian, we've run some workshops, right, around this with FPM, and you use this very quickly. You've used this to look at a fire hall construction and make a decision about what to do in that fire hall, correct?
Precisely, yes, we did. And, this was the fire hall I spoke to earlier on regarding management commitment and how powerful it can be. We saw Mrs. Saga, alluding to that same. And there is no way a 10,000 square feet, fire hall, thought to be the first net zero energy fire hall in Canada, with 6 bays apparatus can be built without, in a municipality of less than 20,000 population. Absolutely no way. But when you have senior management on board, greater things happening. And when we did apply the life cycle costing, if we could go to the next slide, please, this is what we found. At the time, this is post-COVID, these numbers look like fiction. Yeah, I know, because I know there are municipalities that have reached out to me, and the cost of building net zero has tripled, if not even quadrupled. So it really looks like unrealistic. But at the time, a normal fire hall was going to be 2.2 million, and a small municipality of 17 million population, you can understand. Council said, no, let's just do that. Is reasonable, that is cheaper. But when we ran the life cycle costing, we realized that if we go the net zero option, in as much as that was going to cost, the initial cost was going to be 600,000 above the normal fire hall. In a 30-year life cycle costing summary, we realized that the cost of running the net zero fire hall was way much cheaper. As you can see there, you're looking about, let's say, 260 K as operational and maintenance cost. And for a normal fire hall, which was going to be cheaper to build with 2.2 million at a time, the operational cost in the 30-year cycle is going to be over $1 million. And for high performance is going to be another 1.1 also. So at the end of the day, the net zero energy fire hall became the option to go. And council agreed, staff agreed, we did it. And anytime you're on the 401, driving through to Windsor or wherever, pass through London, go via Middlesex Centre, Coldstream, and check the fire hall out. It is there. It's been operational since 2017, and it's all about a combination of on-site renewable energy, 60 kilowatt solar voltaic, panels on top of the fire hall, net metering arrangement, so it develops enough, renewable energy to run the fire hall. And excess energy, of course, goes to the municipal office, which is just across the road, and ground source heat pump. That's all that happened. Just the combination of these three, you get the magic of a net zero carbon neutral fire hall. And Middlesex Centre did it in 2017.
If you want to learn how to use this little tool, there's a spreadsheet behind this, right? LAS have a workshop around it, but we'll also be building some life cycle costing training into the capability building initiative as well. So stay tuned for that one. You'll get a copy of the little spreadsheet. Anybody, I guess you could send you an email and you can get a copy of the spreadsheet tomorrow if you wanted. So, but you kind of need the training sometimes to go along with it. All right.
That's right.
So what's the status of your operational integration, folks? Let's have a look at that. Honora, over to you.
Okay, sorry, there is a technical problem. It doesn't want me to share. Okay,
All right,
it's
got
coming.
it. Mhm.
Okay, see.
Teams is cooperating a little bit today.
Oh yeah.
That's good news.
Okay, you can go ahead.
And yeah, if you haven't seen it, you have to click the button at the top of the response pane to go to the correct slide to get the right questions. As you're answering there, I'll point you for afterwards. You can have a look at the chat because Andrew Knox from Gulfin, who works on the Strategic Energy Management Initiative and other ones, energy management initiatives, he's posted some information about that systematic energy management approach, or ISO 50001, and they've got a workshop coming up on November the 21st. So looking forward to seeing that, Andrew. Hey, I like that the highest score here, well, it was, and the fact that you're assigning responsibility, it's kind of tied for first place, but also that O&M staff, right, you know, are those types of measures are being implemented as well. So that's cool. That's cool. The other procedures or maybe the guidelines are a little bit behind, but you're actually focusing, the group that's responding, you're focusing on those implementation through the operation and maintenance staff, which I think is, you're building that foundation. To me, building the foundation is so important. I've seen so many situations where people have tried to implement capital measures on top of not understood and a not well operated system. Doesn't work well, and everything falls apart. So you're building your foundation. Cool. All right, that's great. Thanks, folks. I'm going to go ahead and go back here, and it'll move on to our next stage, employee engagement. Another favorite of mine. You know what? I'll just have to stop saying that because all of these things, what I've learned over the last whatever years, is that all of these things are important, and they are all my favorite, right? But it was interesting because I once developing we were working on a workshop for sort of doing energy management, and we had this team activity. And I actually found an article which showed that when they did team building for energy management, it actually increased the job satisfaction in general. They actually increased the retention rate. So they were actually going after managed energy. This was in the UK a number of years ago. But what they realized was that they actually were now satisfying their employees and increasing their retention. You know, who'd have thought, right? You know, just by being more sustainable, you can actually keep your employees. Well, it kind of fits together maybe at a notional level, right? Good communication, right? And I think that, you know, it's just like anything else today. If you want people to have it top of mind, you have to communicate and keep it top of mind for them, making sure you've got all those standard forms of communication. But also, it's not just about the information, about the awareness, what you can do. It's about the feedback too, about the numbers. So that's how I would build the feedback into the regular communication. Status, right? Recognizing or seeking and recognizing staff ideas. I was once in a supermarket. I was in the employee staff room upstairs, and it has a box on the wall that says, this staff suggestion box, right, where you put it underneath. It said put good and underlying good suggestions in here, right? It's like all suggestions are good, right? And I was always taught you have to use 3 buckets. Every idea that's submitted needs to have a disposition, and the person who submitted needs to know about that, right? Even if you don't do it. So you have 3 buckets. I'm going to do it tomorrow. I'm going to do it after some consideration. I can't do it, but this is why, but it may end up in that next bucket at some point. So the idea is, you know, ideally you don't want them all in the can't do it bucket. You want to have some spectrum, but you've got to have a disposition. You have to get back to that person, and then you'll get the second and third and the fourth idea. And if you tell somebody why that idea might not work, it might help them to figure out what might work, right? So again, seeking and recognizing staff ideas, and just lots of engagement campaigns. I'm going to say one word here, or one phrase, where there's a thing called CBSM. What the heck is that? Invented by a Canadian from New Brunswick, community-based social marketing. It's a great way to basically engage people. I mean, it's ostensibly about behavior change, but I like to think of it as being about engagement, right? So if you go and search on CBSM, maybe something in the chat there, I don't know, I see lots of stuff coming up. Community-based social marketing, it's a great tool for building employee engagement campaigns. Right now, I'm going to share with you a little video from the city of Sudbury and what they did, right? And this is about projects, but it's also about how people contributed to the project. So the employee engagement is supporting the projects.
I came here in 2012. They didn't have an energy manager. They didn't have an energy department. We need to make a change today to give a better future for our next generation for tomorrow. City of Sudbury corporately owns around 640 buildings. My role involves monitoring of the energy consumption of each building and recommend the measures that should be taken when carrying out a retrofit. Sometimes change can be difficult, but I found that bringing people together, empowering people, that's the key here.
My plant here services 90,000 people. I'm responsible for a staff of 30. My energy bill on average is about $1 million a year. We have to do a better job of not only managing our energy, but keep our costs down as it impacts the city of Greater Sudbury.
There had been energy studies done, but the staff weren't as involved. A lot of what had been put in place didn't get operated.
My role is to easily conversate with anybody, whether he be a general manager or the lowest ranking person. Doesn't matter. All are equally important.
If you talk to staff, they will provide all kinds of ideas.
If you empower people, if you bring the occupant engagement as a strategy, you can see the results.
The work that we've done, the equipment we've installed, it's been a game changer. We've made the plant more reliable.
The newer technology now is going to be very energy efficient for us.
We're not only saving energy in the plant, we're saving literally hundreds and thousands of dollars with all these projects. And we plan to do more.
We have been quite successful because the staff are more involved and much more accepting of the technologies that are coming into play.
Any amount of technology, any organizational structure, they can only go so far. Unless we change the behavior, you have to get the people involved. And that's where the whole difference came for us. Once it starts, it's like a nuclear chain reaction. It doesn't stop.
Well, I hope you found that a little bit inspirational. That's what I hope to build with today's session, is something that not only informs but inspires. And
sorry, go ahead, no, Stephen.
No, go ahead, Christian.
No, I'm just going to say I like the quote. Once it starts, it cannot be stopped. And that's exactly when people get, energized and they catch up the concept of what you are doing. It's powerful. Yeah, employee engagement. Sorry, couldn't help but say that.
No, it's good. If anybody is interested too, both of these videos, and there are many more like it on the Save on Energy website. You can go and find them. And as part of the capability building initiative, I know that the Save on Energy program wants to sort of have more of these examples, right? So if you've done something, that's a great way for you to share what you've done with others, and as we're doing today, but also to recognize your people as well internally. So reach out to the Save on Energy if you've got some ideas about other videos like this. I find them inspiring, and they certainly pull together a lot of the things that I've learned over the years.
So the Menti pool is on for employee engagement.
Yeah. Well, the highest score here is the communication piece, right? For management, but also looking for those ideas. Yes, just by a margin. So again, we're not going to necessarily learn, earth-shattering things from these polls. But the other thing I wanted to achieve here is by having you read through each of these descriptions rapidly, I agree, but read through them, starting to think about what this is all about, right? Because a lot of times we make these statements, employee engagement is important. I mean, the video made a great job of showing why it's important and what they can achieve. But what is it that you're actually going to do, breaking it down into things that mean something to all of us, right? So that's hopefully what these polls will help you to do today. And you can revisit that afterwards, as I said. That's great. So let's move onward. There we go. Continuous improvement. We're kind of through it, right? So we started out at management commitment. We talked about planning, the opportunity identification, the monitoring and reporting, the operational integration, the employee engagement piece. But now we're back to, well, I like the book, Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And there's actually a report called The 7 Habits of Highly Efficient Companies. If you ever just search that one on the internet, it's kind of cool because it talks about 28 different things. And actually, those 28 different things we probably listed, they probably overlap with everything we said here, but sometimes laying it out. So here we got the 7 habits of energy managing companies, right? And in Stephen Covey's book, continuous improvement, he called it sharpen the saw, right? Going around, but continuous improvement, right? And I once worked with an energy person, a sustainability person from a large company many years ago. She's retired now, but she did some amazing things in this country in terms of saving energy. But what she said was that, I remember one day she said to me, Steve, one thing you always got to remember, that the biggest price of energy efficiency is eternal diligence, right? So it's not something you can start and stops and it's done. It's not a once and done thing. It's a continuous thing. We always have to keep continuously improving. But with the numbers and the feedback mechanisms we have today, we can do that, right? So, basically, there's got to be a review process here. We've got to step back from it and look at it, right? If you look at that energy management system, ISO, that's a big part of it, right? It's this continuous improvement wheel and going back and looking at what we've done and does it still make sense? Is it still relevant, right? Is it working? Can we do new things next year, right? So that not just looking at the numbers, but looking at the practices as well. So I'm going to jump quickly to a poll on this one. Then I'm going to come back and show you the do-it-yourself poll, and then we'll talk a little bit about resources, and then we're going to take this workshop, this webinar home.
"37 seconds more." Okay, results are coming in. Yeah.
Yeah, I think our timing is good, Christian.
Yeah, I think we have 1.8. We have implemented at least one improvement. We have started a list of improvement is the highest for our energy management plan.
That second item, the start of the list improvement opportunity. That's
Right.
That's the opportunity register, right? Like
That's
many
right.
people have that in their head, but I mean, having it codified and documented, and
Right.
even available on the website, and actually maybe even publishing results from it, another part of your website.
Yeah, and the second is we have implemented at least one improvement. That's the second highest, which is cool. That's good.
Well, and thanks everybody. I mean, we got a fair sized group here, but this is almost half of you respond to these polls, right?
That's
So
right.
we really appreciate your interaction here today. Hopefully this has brought to you some perspective as well. Again, Nora, you're going to summarize, you're going to put these slides together, and you're going to be able to send it out to people with these results. We'll also, on the next slide here, I'm just going to slip to the next slide here, and then that tool, which probably didn't mean anything to you when I showed it to you earlier, but now you will have a spreadsheet where you can go through and basically evaluate yourself and even use it as a consensus building tool. Where are we at, and what are the aspects of energy management you need to focus on? Building your team out, getting people aware of all these different things. I mean, it's one thing to go ahead, Christian.
Right now, I'm just saying you can even go to council, if you have a particular project that you want to, want to do, and you need funding, you can go to council with this, presentation and say, here we are, and this is how far we've come, and we're good here, but we're not so good here, but with a bit of funding, we can improve. And yeah, that would be a great way to go forward also. So that's our email address as LAS and phone number. Shoot me an email, give me a call if you want to take part in an energy workshop, or if you want to learn more about the fire hall, I'm more than willing. I played an instrumental role in that fire hall, so I'm more than willing to speak to you. And that's one of the workshops that we did. This was where Burlington, Oakville, somewhere there, but one of the
Can't remember. They all blur together.
Yeah, they all blend, especially the pre-COVID ones. Don't remember anything unless I see the photos.
Well, you talked about council, Christian. You talked about council, right? And I remember after doing one of these workshops, I have a little demonstration with a light bulb and an energy meter, right? And we often give away energy meters and these things. But I remember one counselor, she came to the workshop, she took it back and she did the demonstration at council in order to convince council to say yes to a lighting retrofit. So, you know, these workshops have interesting ways that they impact the organizations.
Exactly. So true. And that is the incentives. Hey, I always say in this environment that we are, it's a no-brainer not to do training. I mean, it's because the environment has made it so easy. I mean, you do workshops, treasure hands, and the only net cost to you as a municipality organization is 25% of the cost. Assuming whatever the cost of the workshop, you only pay 25%, and as high as 75% IESO takes care of it. You know, we've got energy efficient building operations up to 50% incentives and rest screen as well. I think with all this funding available, what the IESO is saying to us indirectly is that if we get training right, we will get savings right. And that is what they are doing. So they are really putting money into it and take advantage of it and do some training, do a workshop, treasure and whatever. Yeah.
So if you get training right, you get savings right. That's a good one. I like that, right? Well, it was funny. Like my coffee cup today is, I'm not lazy, I'm energy savings mode, it says. But I also remember we worked with the city of Brampton a few years ago, and they had a coffee cup which said, let's have the conversation conservation conversation. Yeah, and I like the t-shirts from City of Mississauga, right? So sometimes we need these things. That's all part of marketing. I mean, we're marketed to all the time. We can use those same techniques to, you know, keep energy top of mind for people to the extent that it needs to be within their job. Again, lots of training programs available from Save on Energy, also programs in general, existing building commissioning. Click on these links, and when you get the actual slide deck, you'll be able to click on those and have a look at those things. It's a program that the folks from Goldfin run, the Strategic Energy Management Program. Existing building commissioning that pays some pretty good incentives for basically tuning up a building. And also, you click on these links, you can go and register for, say, a measurement verification webinar. So there's lots of registration pages available now for coming workshops, and also new ones to come. I'm not sure if they're retrofits. The next one in this series is going to be retrofits for public sector organizations. We've kind of broadened it beyond municipalities, said, okay, other public sector organizations can intend to. And we'll go through a systematic process for doing retrofits, which is really on that path to carbon zero, net zero, whatever your goal is. So take advantage of these resources. They are valuable, as you say. You know, get the training right, get the savings right. I like that one, Christian. So the other thing that I'll mention to you is there's also expert support available to Save on Energy through the Energy Manager Learning Platform, which again is operated by the folks at Goldfin. But you can use the linking information here and go in there and ask questions and get information, coaching, and that kind of stuff. And there are going to be more coaching resources made available here as well through the capability building program. So we're pretty much to the end of our time. 2 minutes for question and answers, but I mean, we'll stay around as long as anybody needs to. But definitely thank you, everybody. Thanks for your participation. This has been fun. This is kind of a different format, right, Christian? And we kind of like but also the interactive part. So let us know what you think about that too, if you like the poll thing, and because we'd like to build more of that. So within an hour, it's a lot to do, but hopefully it stirred up your thoughts.
Questions. Yeah. It's question time. Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Okay, Kristen, I want to use your little quote here, right? It's like the team thing, right? Okay. Christian once said to me, he said, the team thing, where I come from, we talk about if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go with others.
Go together, exactly. Yeah.
Build the team.
Exactly. Speaks to the power of teamwork. You know.
So what people think about their question, I'm just gonna add that I added a link in the chat with all with a registration page linking to all other events. So
Okay.
it includes all the events Stephen just talked about and other
Okay.
as well.
That sounds good. Right.
Yeah, it is there.
That sounds good. Yeah. Yeah, we hope to see you all again if you're a municipality, public sector, whoever on board this morning. Hope to see you again on the 8th, where we'll be doing the retrofit and some of the resources that LAS, bring to municipalities also that you can take advantage of. But yeah, it's been great having you, and Shirley, certainly thank you for coming. If no questions are coming, I know it's been interactive, the completion of the polls were questions in itself. So like question and answer session in itself. So if no questions are coming, we really understand that. But thank you for your time, and yeah, have an awesome weekend. And yeah, we'll still be around if you want to shoot us a question, ask us something. Yeah, ask me a question about where I come from originally.
Thank you,
because
Melanie.
of my accent.
Thank you,
I will tell
Michael.
you.
We're getting
Yeah.
some applause there.
Yeah, I can
Thank
see
you.
some
Thanks, Randy.
clappings there. Thank you for that. We appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I have a question, but I'll email it.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Okay,
Michael.
perfect.
Please feel free to. It's too long. It's fine. Yeah, feel free to do
and
that.
thank you, Honor, for all your help in making this work well. It's first time we've done it, but thank you very much.
No problem. So yeah, thank you, Stephen and Christian, and thank you all for taking 1 hour of your time to be with us, and we hope to see you to future event as well. So just a last thing, so I'm gonna send a follow-up email with all the materials we've seen today, and also a questionnaire to have your feedback. So please take 2 minutes to give us your feedback. Would be really appreciated. So have a great Halloween weekend and a great day.
It's Halloween. Totally forgot that. Anyway. Yeah, it comes so soon. Yeah.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.
Hello, Nora. Oh, I thought
Okay.
Stephen was okay.
Yes, I thought you would stay as well.
I thought Stephen was staying by to talk through. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
we
he
can
didn't.
we can ping him.
Yeah, you can ping him, sure. If he wants to
yeah.
jump on board, it will be good to debrief a bit on the.
Yeah. Actually, I don't know if I can talk to him on Teams. That's a good question. I'm gonna try.
Okay. Yeah, but thank you. The transition was seamless, from the Mentipool to it worked so well. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it works well. Except I don't know if people. I think one person was saying he couldn't see the poll, but I hope it was the only one.
Yeah. I think it could be with his computer, not us. I don't think it was us.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
if all the others are seeing it and he is not, then it could be them.
Yeah. Okay, I don't think it's working on Teams.
Okay, let me test him and see if he can join us.
Okay.
So we just stop the recording.
Yes.
Oh yeah, perfect. Oh, yeah, it was still recording. Oops.
Yeah.
Maybe we can try to